Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere that sounds like science fiction, but is very, very real. Imagine walking across the blistering sands of the Tunisian desert, where the sun clings to your skin like static, and every breath feels like it came from a toaster. And then, without warning, you stumble upon a deep circular pit in the earth. A few cautious steps closer, and suddenly the ground drops into a shaded, sculpted courtyard, carved neatly into the walls. Doors, windows, staircases. It's an entire home. No, a neighborhood hidden right beneath your feet. This is Tunisia's underground world, where families have lived in homes carved straight into the rock and clay for hundreds of years. They don't just survive the desert heat down there, they thrive. Without electricity, without air conditioning, and definitely without any overpriced ceramic diffuser misting eucalyptus into the air. Just raw earth, clever engineering, and a whole lot of patience with dust. You probably won't survive this if you're used to Central Air and Amazon Prime, but luckily, we're visiting in spirit only. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. We begin with the reason anyone ever thought to dig a house into the dirt in the first place: survival. Because out here, above ground, it's just you and the sun does not take prisoners. The summer heat in parts of Tunisia regularly climbs past 45 degrees Celsius, 113 degrees Fahrenheit, with bone-dry air and relentless daylight that can stretch for up to 14 hours. You don't need to be a climate scientist to figure out that baking in that heat isn't ideal. But centuries ago, the Berber people figured out a solution that most of us would have overlooked entirely. They went underground. Not out of fear or fantasy, but pure practicality. Because, as it turns out, the earth itself is a phenomenal air conditioner. When you carve into the ground, even just a few meters, the temperature stabilizes. It hovers around 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, no matter what's going on above. That's the magic of thermal inertia. The ground takes forever to heat up or cool down. So while the sand outside might feel like walking on a hot skillet, inside the cave homes, it's refreshingly cool. No fans, no whirring AC. Just silence and shade. And the best part? The design is instinctively brilliant. A typical cave dwelling begins with a deep, open-air courtyard. Imagine a perfectly round hole about the size of a small swimming pool. Around this pit, rooms are dug horizontally into the clay walls, forming bedrooms, kitchens, storage spaces, even tiny animal pens. Sometimes, multiple courtyards are connected by winding tunnels, creating a veritable labyrinth of life beneath the desert crust. From above, these homes are invisible, just dips in the landscape. That invisibility was both a feature and a defense mechanism. According to some local legends, these homes helped shield families from raiders, and later, even from aerial bombardment during colonial conflicts. But we'll get to that more in Section 7. For now, just imagine walking across what looks like a flat, dusty plain, only to realize it's full of hidden homes. Now here's your first quirky tidbit. Apparently, some of these cave dwellers used to smear crocodile dung across their door frames to repel insects. Supposedly, it worked. No word on the smell, but hey, priorities. Scientists still argue about the exact origins of this architecture. Some say the Berbers inherited the techniques from earlier desert civilizations. Others think it evolved independently, a brilliant solution to Tunisia's unforgiving terrain. There's even mild academic squabbling over whether these homes represent intentional architecture or just glorified survival shelters. You can almost hear one dusty professor snorting into his espresso over that. But honestly, intentional or not, they work. And they've worked for hundreds of years. As you lay there, picture the feel of packed earth beneath your bare feet. Not dusty, smooth and slightly cool, like touching the inside of a pottery bowl. Outside, the wind howls across barren hills. But in here, it's quiet. Not the fake quiet of noise-canceling headphones. Actual, physical silence, broken only by the occasional soft clink of a teacup or a whispered conversation floating down a tunnel. Of course, you wouldn't be alone. Most of these homes aren't for hermits. They're made for families. Big ones. Grandparents, parents, kids, maybe an uncle who always seems to be napping. These courtyards buzz with life during the day. Laundry drying along rope lines, kids playing with goats, steam rising from tea kettles balanced over clay stoves. Then, at night, the stars emerge, sharper and closer than most city dwellers ever see. And the whole house disappears into the dark like a secret kept by the earth. And as for you, you'd probably be curled up on a mattress, stitched from sheep's wool, tucked into a corner, hollowed from the rock. It wouldn't feel claustrophobic. It would feel safe. Like the world above is just noise. And here, underground, everything slows down. But don't doze off just yet. Because in the next section, we're heading to the most famous of these subterranean towns. One with a name as strange as its architecture. Matmata. Matmata doesn't look like much from above. In fact, if you were flying over it in a small plane, or maybe being chased through the sky by Imperial stormtroopers, you'd probably miss it entirely. The surface is just a patchwork of tan earth, sun-bleached stone, and what look like oversized potholes dotting the landscape. But peer into any one of those craters, and you'll find yourself staring down into the heart of a hidden world. This is Tunisia's troglodyte capital, Matmata. The name sounds like something between a sneeze and a video game boss, but don't let that distract you. It's a living, breathing village where people still live underground, just as their ancestors have for centuries. And no, troglodyte isn't an insult here. It simply means cave dweller. Though if you called a local that to their face, maybe do it with a smile. Matmata's homes follow a simple yet genius formula. You start with a central pit, a courtyard sunk into the ground, often circular or oval. From this base, rooms are dug out laterally into the walls, creating a donut of living space surrounding the open sky. Need a guest room? Dig deeper. Want a second courtyard for your cousin's growing family? Tunnel out and start a new hole. It's like Minecraft, but with shovels and very real blisters. As you walk through Matmata's winding passageways, you realize something else. These homes weren't just dug into the earth, they were carved with it. The walls are smooth but irregular, bearing the gentle scallops of pickaxes and human hands. The ceilings are arched for structural integrity, and alcoves are sculpted directly into the clay, serving as shelves or headboards. Sometimes, rooms even have little niches where candles flicker, throwing shadows across the curved walls like sleepy ghosts. And then there's the color. Earthy oranges and soft beiges, often brightened with splashes of blue paint, or faded tribal fabrics pinned to the walls. No mass-produced IKEA decor here, just texture, tradition, and the occasional goat wandering through the courtyard like he pays rent. But don't be fooled by the simplicity. These homes are complex in spirit. Each one is like a thumbprint, unique, layered, personal. Families pass them down like heirlooms, and the digging process becomes a family affair. It's not uncommon for a father and son to spend weeks or months extending a tunnel or refreshing a crumbling wall, usually while dodging cousins who want to turn the new room into a football pitch. Now, here's your mainstream geography fact of the night. Matmata sits in the semi-arid Jafara region of southern Tunisia. This area is part of the northern edge of the Sahara, which means it gets just enough rain to keep things interesting, but not enough to ruin your digging projects. The soil here is primarily a soft, chalky clay, perfect for hand excavation, but stable enough to last for decades, even centuries. But there's a fringe detail you might not know. During the 1960s, a freak rainstorm hit the region. It was so heavy that many of the cave homes collapsed or flooded, some for the first time in living memory. Panicked residents were temporarily relocated to above-ground housing, built in a hurry by the government. But many refused to stay. They found the boxy concrete homes too sterile, too hot, too noisy. The underground homes, by contrast, felt like home. Cool, intimate, familiar. So once the waters dried up, many families moved right back underground. You can't say the same about most people after their basement floods. And here's where things get a little scholarly. There's an ongoing debate among anthropologists about whether the crater home design emerged in response to ancient Roman military architecture. Some argue that these homes mirror sunken Roman villas found in parts of North Africa, almost like a cultural echo. Others insist it's pure environmental adaptation. One theory even suggests the homes were originally used as grain storage pits before being expanded into shelters. The truth, as always, probably lies somewhere in the dusty middle. You'll notice, too, that the layout of these homes fosters a very specific kind of life rhythm. There's a circular flow, courtyard to room, room to tunnel, tunnel to another courtyard. That turns every trip to the kitchen into a little maze. Kids grow up with a built-in sense of spatial memory that would put most GPS systems to shame. And the courtyards? They're not just holes in the ground. They're gathering places. Places to drink mint tea, argue about football, mend clothes, sing lullabies. Tiny amphitheaters of family life. During the heat of the day, the homes sink into a meditative quiet. Shadows stretch lazily across walls, and the occasional cooing of doves breaks the silence. But at night, oh, that's when Matmata truly hums. Lanterns flicker. Voices echo from courtyards. Someone's baking flatbread in a clay oven. And laughter rises like smoke up to the stars. It's the kind of atmosphere you can't build with bricks. It has to be dug, lived in, passed down like a bedtime story, whispered through tunnels. You might be tempted to think of Matmata as frozen in time, a relic of an ancient way of life. But look closer, and you'll see traces of modernity sneaking in. A satellite dish mounted to a courtyard edge. A teenager charging his phone with a solar panel. A grandmother listening to the news on a tiny radio, wedged into a wall niche. These aren't museum pieces. They're evolving homes, breathing spaces, sacred ground under ordinary feet. And of course, they're not just for locals anymore. Thanks to a certain science fiction franchise we'll dive into next, Matmata has earned a strange new fame. Tourists arrive, snap a photo, marvel at the heat, and leave. Some stay overnight in cave hotels with comically named suites like the Jawa Den. But the true soul of Matmata can't be found in a gift shop. It's in the hush of midday shade, in the echo of voices bouncing off clay, in the way the earth embraces its people like a second skin. So if you're lying there now, maybe squinting through the dark, picture yourself peeking over the edge of a crater home at dusk. The sun is a low golden coin. Smoke rises gently from some unseen dinner. And deep below, a family gathers in the cool heart of the earth. Next, we'll follow a shovel, a pickaxe, and maybe one very enthusiastic uncle as we explore how these homes are actually built. Clay blisters, tunnel tantrums, and all. If you've ever struggled to hang a shelf straight, you might want to sit this one out. Because building a home underground, without blueprints, cranes, or a single line of Wi-Fi, is not for the faint of heart. But the people of Matmata and its neighboring regions have been doing it for generations, armed with nothing more than hand tools, intuition, and a very persuasive understanding of geology. Let's start at the surface. You don't just grab a shovel and go rogue in the middle of the desert. The first step to building one of Tunisia's underground homes is choosing exactly the right patch of land. The soil needs to be soft enough to dig through by hand, but firm enough to hold its shape. Too crumbly, and the roof caves in. Too hard, and you'll be picking clay out of your ears until retirement. The sweet spot? A dense, chalky loam called hamada clay. Think of it like Goldilocks dirt, just right. Once a site is chosen, it's time to dig the courtyard. This is the home's center of gravity, its nucleus. Digging begins in a circle, always by hand, using picks and buckets. No power tools, no jackhammers, just muscle, sweat, and sometimes the assistance of a particularly enthusiastic cousin who's been waiting all summer for this. It takes weeks, sometimes months, to dig a courtyard deep enough, usually about 6 to 8 meters, or roughly 2 stories. The earth is carted out in baskets or dragged by sleds, often hauled up with makeshift pulley systems that would make a modern engineer cry into their CAD software. Here's where it gets clever. The shape of the courtyard isn't just for aesthetics, it's structural. A circular pit distributes weight evenly, preventing collapse. It also allows sunlight to flood down into the living areas without letting in the searing horizontal rays of mid-afternoon. That's right. The sun actually behaves differently when you live in a hole. It's less of a tyrant and more of a guest who pops in, warms the floor, and leaves before dinner. With the pit complete, it's time to carve the rooms. And this isn't just brute force, it's artistry. Each room is dug horizontally into the courtyard wall, typically beginning with a small opening that's gradually widened. As the space deepens, the ceiling is curved into a shallow dome to prevent stress fractures. Door frames, alcoves, even seating benches are carved directly into the clay. Some families even create decorative flourishes, fluted borders, sculpted ridges, or sacred symbols etched above doorways to keep out bad luck and bad visitors. And here comes your mainstream fact. This technique is known as troglodyte architecture, and while it's most famous in Tunisia, it actually pops up around the world. From the Cappadocia region in Turkey to the soft sandstone homes of Guadix, Spain, humans have been going underground for centuries. It's one of the oldest architectural forms still in use today. But leave it to Tunisia to give it flair. Unlike the stony dwellings in Turkey or the compact caves of southern China, Tunisian underground homes are designed with expansion in mind. Got a third child on the way? Dig another room. Need a dedicated tea area? Tunnel off to the side and carve out a niche. Some of the older homes are absolute rabbit warrens, 3 or 4 courtyards, each with a dozen rooms, all interconnected by winding, narrow halls. If you grew up there, you'd never get lost. If you didn't, you'll be asking toddlers for directions. Here's a fun fringe tidbit. Some older builders used to wet the walls with goat's milk during carving. Supposedly, it helped reveal cracks and weak spots in the clay. Whether that's true or just an excuse for the goats to feel important, we'll never know. Scientists still argue over the origins of the tools used in the earliest cave homes. Some believe the digging techniques were inherited from Neolithic mining practices. Others think they evolved from a form of ritual earth carving tied to ancestor worship. There's even speculation that early homes doubled as spiritual sanctuaries, with their curved walls enhancing chants and prayers. So basically, your guest bedroom might have once been someone's temple. Sleep tight. The digging process is physically brutal. It involves crouching in tight spaces, working in low light, and navigating the acoustics of a dirt room that echoes every grunt and muttered swear word. The good news? It's naturally cooler in there. So while you may be sweating buckets from swinging a pickaxe, at least you're not baking while you do it. And then there's the sound. The moment the first chamber is dug out, everything changes. Voices become muffled. Tools make a dull thunk instead of a clang. The deeper you go, the more the world above slips away. It's one of the most disorienting, peaceful feelings you'll ever have. If you've ever wanted to feel like you're wrapped in a thick clay blanket while someone digs your living room around you, this is the vibe. But all this work isn't just about creating a livable space. It's a rite of passage. Boys in Matmata grow up watching their uncles dig. Girls learn how to design alcoves and apply whitewash in intricate patterns. Everyone has a role. When a new courtyard is finished, it's often blessed with song, mint tea, and a few proud declarations about how this one is definitely bigger than your neighbor's. Naturally. Once complete, the home blends seamlessly into the earth. From above, you'd barely know it was there. Just a few ledges, maybe a low mud wall for privacy, and some faint footprints leading to what looks like a dried-up sinkhole. But inside, it's a masterpiece of adaptation, a statement of belonging, a quiet rebellion against heat, wind, noise, and convention. So tonight, imagine yourself helping dig your own underground retreat. Feel the grit in your hair. Taste the dry clay in the back of your throat. Wipe your forehead with a sun-bleached rag. Then, take a step back and look around. You've turned dirt into dwelling, shade into sanctuary. The earth has given you a home, and in return, all it asks is that you walk softly and never take it for granted. Up next, we'll step inside one of these homes, kick off our imaginary sandals, and marvel at how mud walls manage to beat modern insulation. Yes, it's the underground science of staying chill. Let's be honest. Most of us live in boxes. Hot in summer, cold in winter, loud when it rains, echoey when you cry. You crank the AC, or curse the heating bill, and wrap yourself in a blanket made from some synthetic fiber with a name like Arctic Tech. But beneath the Tunisian sands, there are homes that regulate temperature so beautifully, so effortlessly, You'd think the walls had a diploma in thermodynamics. Welcome to the science of mud walls. When you walk into an underground home in Matmata, the first thing you'll notice, aside from the sudden drop in temperature, is how the air changes. It's still, not stale, just still. Cool, too, even when the world outside is practically on fire. That's not a trick of luck. It's the result of carefully balanced architecture, informed by centuries of desert wisdom and one very surprising material, the humble wall. See, the thick clay walls that form these homes are masters of insulation. They absorb the heat during the day and release it slowly at night like the world's most patient radiator. This property is called thermal inertia, and it's what allows the interior temperature of cave homes to hover between 1822 degrees Celsius, 64 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, year-round. That's without heating, cooling, or yelling at your landlord. Even better, the air doesn't move much. There's no draft, no whistling through cracked windows. Instead, the thick, curved tunnels and sunken layout keep airflow subtle, steady, and remarkably free of the Sahara's infamous dust storms. It's a kind of passive climate control that modern architects drool over and occasionally try to replicate using expensive Adobe rendering software and phrases like bioclimatic design. Now here's your mainstream geographical nugget. This same natural climate control has been studied by architects worldwide as a model for eco-friendly housing. In fact, universities in Europe have tried to reverse engineer the Matmata method for use in modern eco-villages. But somehow, adding glass panels and sleek cement ruins the magic. Turns out, digging a hole in the ground is hard to improve upon. Let's pause for a moment and picture yourself lying inside one of these rooms. The walls are curved, not flat. No corners, just gentle arcs of clay, smoothed by hands and age. There's a small window carved high into the wall, letting in just enough light to paint golden stripes across the floor. Your bed sits on a raised clay platform with woven rugs softening the surface. The air is quiet. No hum of machines. No buzzing of light fixtures. Just the sound of your breath. The occasional drip from a roof stone. And maybe, just maybe, the distant laugh of a neighbor echoing through the courtyard tunnel. Of course, these walls aren't just for comfort. They're built to last. While your apartment drywall probably flinches at the thought of a toddler with crayons, these clay homes can weather generations, even mild earthquakes. Their flexibility, the natural give of the earth, means they shift without shattering. It's the same principle used in adobe construction throughout Mexico, Peru, and parts of Iran. The earth protects its own. And here's a fringe fact to chew on. Some families used to rub the walls with a mix of goat fat and ashes to seal in the coolness. Whether that actually helped or just kept curious goats from licking the plaster remains unclear. Scientists still argue over whether the longevity of these homes comes from the materials themselves or the way they're maintained. Is it the density of the clay that makes them survive for centuries? Or the constant upkeep, replastering, smoothing, reshaping, that gives them their resilience? Some say the homes are like living organisms. They breathe, they change, they need tending. Others argue that it's just a great construction hack. The debate, like many things buried in clay, remains unresolved. Now, imagine trying to explain this setup to a modern real estate agent. So the house has no doors, no windows, and you get to it by walking into a hole. Agent: right. And how many bathrooms? But jokes aside, these homes defy the logic we're taught about comfort. No air vents, no thermostats, no smart home speakers arguing with your voice commands. And yet, every room stays within that Goldilocks zone of temperature. Not too hot, not too cold, perfect for naps, dangerous for productivity. And did I mention how soundproof they are? The thick clay walls absorb vibrations like a sponge. You could host a midnight tea party or conduct an impromptu drum circle, and your neighbors would never know. It's the exact opposite of paper-thin apartment walls, where you can hear someone chew 2 floors away. In Matmata, secrets stay secret. Of course, not all underground homes are created equal. Some have more elaborate insulation tricks, woven ceiling mats for extra shade, or glazed tiles that reflect light and reduce interior heat gain. Others are more minimalist, just raw earth, swept floors, and a few strategically placed throw blankets to keep the chill away. But all of them, regardless of size or finish, operate on the same core principle. Let the planet do the work. And even the ceiling height plays a role. Taller arched roofs allow warm air to rise, keeping the living space below cooler. In colder months, families cluster in lower, tighter rooms where body heat and cooking fires can warm the space quickly. No switches, no dials, just movement and intuition. As night falls in these homes, something else shifts. The earth begins to release the warmth it absorbed during the day. The walls exhale it gently into the rooms, turning cool corridors into cozy burrows. The smell of clay sharpens slightly. Candles are lit. Someone unrolls a thin mattress in the corner, lays out embroidered cushions, and begins brewing tea. No rush, no noise. Just the slow surrender to sleep as the desert above fades into starlight and the house beneath begins to hum. So tonight, as you settle into your own bed, picture yourself under 3 meters of solid earth, listening to the steady breath of clay around you. No AC, no draft, just the perfect temperature and the sound of silence. In our next section, we'll explore what happens when an entire neighborhood lives this way. How cave homes don't just shape the temperature, but the culture inside them. Bring your imaginary teacup. There's gossip to be shared in the courtyard. You might think that living underground is a solitary experience. Quiet, insulated, sunken away from the world. It sounds like a lifestyle designed for hermits, or perhaps the occasional disgruntled wizard. But in Tunisia's cave villages, nothing could be further from the truth. These are not bunker homes. They're social ecosystems. And the key to it all? The courtyard. Picture it. You're standing in the center of a wide, sunlit pit. Clay walls rise around you in a gentle ring. Doors carved into the walls open into bedrooms, kitchens, storage nooks, even makeshift goat pens. Overhead, the sky is a perfect blue disk. The air smells like warm earth and mint tea. From somewhere nearby, the sound of laughter echoes off the walls. Welcome to the courtyard, a place that is part living room, part village square, part open-air therapy session. Every day in a troglodyte home begins and ends in the courtyard. This is where children play, elders sip tea, clothes are washed, bread is baked, and news is swapped. Not just news of the wider world, mind you, local news, real, crucial, ancient gossip. Who built an extra room? Who let their sheep wander too far? Who's got a son who's talking to a girl from the next village over? The usual. In this layout, privacy is a fluid concept. Yes, you have your own room, But the shared space is sacred. Families live together across generations. Grandparents, parents, kids, sometimes a cousin or two. Always at least one mysteriously unmarried uncle. Meals are communal. Celebrations are held with laughter that climbs the clay walls like vines. Even mourning happens here, surrounded by familiar walls and watchful neighbors. And here's the beautiful twist. Living this close underground doesn't breed claustrophobia. It breeds community. It's not just about surviving the desert. It's about surviving with people. You grow up learning to read the rhythms of others, to share, to negotiate, to coexist without doors or escape routes. That's something you won't find in your modern condo tower, where most neighbors remain strangers until the fire alarm goes off. Here's your geography nugget for the night. In Tunisia, particularly in Berber regions like Matmata, multi-generational households are the norm, not the exception. This has been the case for centuries. The layout of troglodyte homes reflects this social model. Rooms aren't divided by hierarchy, but by function and flow. A newlywed couple might get a freshly dug room just off the main tunnel, while grandma gets the warmest one closest to the kitchen. Makes sense, right? And now a fringe detail for your curiosity cabinet. Some families even paint their courtyards with whitewash or pastel blue to reflect light and keep things cheerful. The blue, they say, wards off evil spirits and flies. Science is unclear on whether spirits or insects care about interior design, but the result is charming. Scientists still argue over whether this kind of architecture leads to stronger social cohesion or simply adapts to it. Do people live close together because they're naturally communal? Or did the structure of their homes make them that way? There are entire papers debating this, usually written by academics who have never had to share a wall with a goat. But for the people who live in these homes, the answer isn't theoretical. It's baked into their lives. Consider how these spaces transform with each day. In the morning, the courtyard fills with the smell of baking flatbread. Women kneel over stone ovens set into the ground, shaping dough and laughing softly. Children chase shadows and goats. A neighbor leans over from the next courtyard. Yes, that's a thing. To offer leftover couscous. Or ask if your brother's wedding is still happening next Friday. By afternoon, the heat drives everyone inside. Hallways become shady escapes. Stories are told in quiet tones. Someone plays a flute. A toddler naps on a blanket while the walls pulse gently with warmth from the morning sun. Then dusk arrives. The light softens. Tea is poured. Oil lamps flicker in carved alcoves. Conversations deepen. Elders reminisce. Stars appear, crisp and indifferent, while underground, the people of Matmata tuck themselves into the arms of the earth and of each other. And let's not forget the most delightful open secret of all, underground acoustics. The sound inside a troglodyte home carries differently. Words bounce gently along curved walls. Conversations float rather than echo. It creates a dreamy softness to every spoken sentence. It's not uncommon for songs to rise unplanned from one courtyard and be answered in another, a kind of call and response shaped by clay. Of course, living this way comes with compromises. Arguments have no doors to hide behind. Gossip echoes louder than intentions. There is no stomping off to your room and slamming a door when your aunt criticizes your lentil soup. Just a dramatic sigh and maybe a short tunnel stroll. But the benefits outweigh the awkwardness. There is a steady comfort in knowing your people are always within reach. You're never truly alone. Even the earth seems to agree, holding everyone together like a mother's palm cupped around her children. So if you're lying there now, eyes fluttering shut, picture the warmth of a late afternoon in a Matmata courtyard. Someone's clapping dust off a rug. Someone else is slicing dates with a blunt little knife. A child giggles and vanishes down a tunnel. And above it all, the sky glows like a soft lantern framed by the ring of your home. In the next section, we'll meet the unlikely hero who gave Matmata its 5 minutes of fame. Not a historian, not a geologist, but a guy with a beard, a camera, and a galaxy far, far away. If you've ever looked at a sun-scorched crater in the desert and thought, this would make a great sci-fi location, you're in oddly specific company. Because in the 1970s, a young filmmaker named George Lucas was wandering the dusty backroads of southern Tunisia, scouting for something alien, something otherworldly, something believable. And what did he stumble upon? Matmata. Yes, that Matmata. The quiet village tucked beneath the sand, with crater homes that looked like they belonged on another planet. And just like that, Tunisia's ancient underground dwellings got cast in one of the most iconic films of all time, Welcome to the Star Wars Connection. Lucas saw the pit homes and instantly knew this would be Tatooine, a harsh desert world on the outer rim, home to Luke Skywalker, moisture farms, and sand that, according to one famously grumpy Jedi, gets everywhere. The film crew rolled into Matmata, set up shop in one of the traditional cave houses, and gave it a minor sci-fi makeover. Suddenly, the humble troglodyte home became the Lars homestead, where young Luke would gaze wistfully at twin suns and dream of escape. And now, for your mainstream fact of the night. The hotel where they filmed those scenes still exists. It's called Hotel Sidi Driss, and yes, you can stay there. The rooms are basic. Clay walls, stiff beds, shared bathrooms. But the courtyard still holds set pieces from the original film, fake machinery, painted doors, and a weird sense of nostalgia for a galaxy that never actually existed. Tourists arrive with lightsabers. Locals smile patiently. Somewhere, a goat stares blankly at a replica droid. But beneath the pop culture moment is something deeper. Lucas didn't build a set from scratch. He didn't construct an alien world in a studio. He borrowed reality, specifically this reality, and showed it to the world through a sci-fi lens. Matmata became an alien planet simply by being itself. And here's a fringe tidbit you probably didn't know. During filming, the crew stayed in the village and befriended locals, many of whom had never heard of cinema, let alone science fiction. When villagers finally saw the film, they reportedly laughed at how strange it all looked. Stormtroopers in their neighbors' rooms, droids standing where goats usually slept, and their own homes disguised as otherworldly dwellings. Scientists still argue whether Star Wars' portrayal of Tatooine damaged or elevated Tunisia's cultural heritage. Some believe the movie sparked awareness and tourism that helped preserve the architecture. Others argue it reduced a rich, centuries-old tradition to a movie backdrop. There's even academic debate over whether this kind of exposure counts as cultural commodification or cultural celebration. Either way, the desert had never seen so many white sneakers. After the film's success, curious travelers began trickling into Matmata. First a few, then dozens, then busloads. They came looking for Star Wars, but found real people living in what looked like movie sets. Some villagers welcomed the attention, especially those who converted parts of their homes into guest rooms. Others shrugged it off and went back to baking bread. The Hotel City Driss became a pilgrimage site for hardcore fans. There are annual meetups, impromptu costume photo shoots, and the occasional awkward conversation where someone tries to explain how lightspeed travel works to a man who's just trying to milk a goat. To this day, tourists walk through the sunken courtyards and marvel at the design, convinced it must be futuristic. They ask how it was built, whether the locals are actors, if the underground homes have Wi-Fi. Some do. They stare at the dirt and say, "This looks like Star Wars." And the locals, with that particular brand of Tunisian calm, usually reply, "No, Star Wars looks like this." But the fame hasn't entirely changed Matmata. Walk a little past the hotel, and you'll find quiet homes untouched by cameras. Courtyards where life goes on exactly as it did before Luke ever touched the lightsaber. Kids still chase chickens. Elders still sit in the shade. Bread still rises in ancient ovens. The stars above are the same ones that watched this place long before any franchise gave it fictional fame. Still, the Star Wars legacy hovers. Like desert heat, it rises subtly from the ground. It's in the murals of Tatooine painted on cafe walls, in the little plastic R2D2S perched next to teapots, in the tourists who ask locals for selfies, then try to climb into bedrooms marked private. For some families, this new fame is a blessing. They've opened their homes as cave hotels, offering meals, tours, even full Jedi experiences for a fee. Others, more reserved, treat it like weather. It comes and goes. Doesn't really matter unless it floods the courtyard. But the real treasure in all this isn't that a movie was filmed here. It's that millions of people saw Matmata for the first time, even if they didn't know what they were looking at. A place so rooted in earth and tradition that it became the future on screen. A world where comfort is carved, not purchased, where architecture and survival dance in perfect sync beneath the sand. So tonight, imagine yourself standing in that famous courtyard. You look up. The sky is deep and dark. No twin suns, just one, sleeping now, far beyond the horizon. The clay walls glow softly in the moonlight. And somewhere, faint but clear, you hear the hum of a theme song, not written for this world, but borrowed from it. Coming up next, not everyone was thrilled about these underground dwellings. Let's peel back the history and find out what happened when colonizers, soldiers, and surveyors tried to make sense of homes that didn't fit on their maps. For centuries, the underground homes of southern Tunisia quietly did their job, sheltering families, keeping temperatures steady, and shrugging off desert winds like a well-trained camel. They weren't grand palaces or celebrated wonders, just homes. Practical, ancient, and astonishingly well-designed. But when the colonial era arrived, armed with clipboards, uniforms, and a general dislike of anything they didn't immediately understand, the caves of Matmata suddenly became a problem. You see, French colonial administrators weren't entirely sure what to make of these people who lived in holes. To them, the subterranean homes weren't ingenious feats of vernacular architecture. They were eyesores, uncivilized, primitive. They didn't show up on census reports. They didn't conform to colonial building codes. And worst of all, they defied the neat little grids preferred by European surveyors. Try mapping a village that's invisible from the surface and see how long your monocle stays on straight. So they did what colonizers often do. when faced with something unfamiliar. They ignored it. For decades, Matmata and its surrounding villages barely registered on French maps. Officials dismissed the underground homes as relics or temporary dwellings, despite the fact that some had stood firm for over 400 years. Now, here's your mainstream historical fact. French colonial rule in Tunisia lasted from 1881 to 1956. During that time, infrastructure projects focused on coastal cities and above-ground villages. Matmata, being both remote and invisible, fell through the cracks, literally. That meant no formal schools, few medical services, and roads that might as well have been goat trails. But here's the twist. That very neglect helped preserve the architecture. No bulldozers came through to modernize the homes. No zoning laws were enforced to flatten courtyards or demand chimneys. Life below ground continued, quiet and undisturbed, while above, colonial ambitions burned themselves out. Still, the relationship wasn't entirely peaceful. During World War II, Tunisia saw heavy fighting as Allied and Axis forces battled for control of North Africa. Matmata, again, became strategically useful precisely because it was underground. Locals used their tunnel networks to move food, hide supplies, and, according to some oral histories, shelter fleeing soldiers. The home's invisibility turned into camouflage. Their silence became protection. Here is a fringe tidbit to tuck into your brain. A few colonial officials believed these homes posed a military risk, not because they housed weapons, but because they created what one particularly dramatic French memo called terrain d'ombres, a shadow landscape beyond control or surveillance. You've got to admit, that sounds like something out of a spy novel. Scientists still argue about the true extent of colonial suppression of troglodyte life. Some historians suggest it was more bureaucratic negligence than active erasure. Others point to missionary records and early ethnographic reports that dismiss the underground dwellers as lost tribes or anachronistic survivors. One French anthropologist in the 1930s described Matmata's people as mole-like, enduring, and spiritually untamed. A backhanded compliment, if ever there was one. After Tunisia gained independence in 1956, the government faced its own dilemma. What to do with villages like Matmata? Should they be preserved, supported, or modernized into something more rectangular? The 1969 floods forced the issue. After days of uncharacteristically heavy rain, several cave homes collapsed, displacing families and drawing sudden, frantic attention from the national government. In response, officials constructed a new, above-ground village nearby. New Matmata. These homes were concrete, standardized, and in theory safer. Many cave dwellers were relocated, offered modern plumbing and electrical connections as incentives to stay above ground. Some accepted, but many quietly returned to their pits once the water dried. Why? Because the modern homes were sweltering. No matter how many fans you plugged in, they couldn't compete with the cool, thick silence of a clay wall. The rooms echoed in strange, hollow ways. And most importantly, the new homes lacked courtyards, the heart and rhythm of troglodyte life. Without that sunlit ring of earth, the space felt unfinished, like a house with no soul. Even today, this tension lingers. Drive through the outskirts of Matmata, and you'll see the new buildings, square, modern, often half abandoned. Nearby, A single footpath may wind toward a crater where clothes are drying on a rope and steam curls from an underground kitchen. A place where life is not new, but whole. Of course, modern governments eventually caught on. Today, Tunisia recognizes the cultural and architectural value of its underground homes. Matmata is a protected site. There are preservation efforts, tourism funds, and even international partnerships studying the home's sustainability. But it took time, nearly being erased, misunderstood, and rain-soaked before the world started listening. So tonight, picture yourself as one of those early cartographers, standing on a quiet desert hill, utterly perplexed. The map says there's a village here, but all you see is sand. You take a step. The earth shifts beneath you. A voice rises up from the ground. You've found Matmata, or maybe it's found you. And now that we've wandered through its history of misunderstanding, it's time to sink deeper. In the next section, we'll explore what it feels like to sleep underground, where dreams echo, sound disappears, and silence gets so thick you might start whispering to yourself. So, you're lying underground. Not metaphorically, not in a wine cellar, not in your friend's converted basement with questionable plumbing and one flickering bulb. You're actually beneath the earth, inside a carefully carved chamber of sun-dried clay, surrounded on all sides by 3 meters of pure silence. And suddenly, it hits you. This isn't just a place to live. It's a place to disappear. Welcome to the acoustic magic of Tunisia's underground homes. Let's talk about the sound, or rather, the absence of it. When you sleep in a cave dwelling, everything goes quiet in a way your nervous system isn't quite used to. There's no hum from an appliance in the next room, no passing cars, no buzzing streetlights, no distant lawnmower that always starts just as you're about to nap. There's just hush, the kind of hush that feels like a blanket for your ears. At first, it's comforting. Then it gets eerie. Your breath becomes loud. Your heartbeat sounds amplified. Even the shuffle of your blanket feels like it's announcing itself to the walls. Some first-time visitors describe it like sleeping in velvet. Others say it's like floating in soundproof ink. A few joke that it's so quiet you start to hear your thoughts. And not all of them are invited guests. The walls help with that, of course. Thick clay doesn't just insulate against heat, it swallows noise. The slightly curved ceilings scatter sound rather than bounce it. There are no echoes, no sharp reverberations. A laugh in the courtyard rolls in like a distant wave. A snore from the next room? Gone before it arrives. If you've ever wanted to record a podcast without background noise, may I suggest Matmata? Mainstream Geography check-in. Similar acoustic effects have been documented in troglodyte homes across Cappadocia in Turkey and parts of southern China's Yaodong region. In all 3, researchers note that the wall shape, domed, irregular, and made of natural earth, creates what's known as diffuse reverb. That means sound is softened, not just blocked. It fades like light filtered through gauze. But there's something else, something subtle. The silence of a cave home doesn't just dull noise, it changes how you sleep. Studies have shown that environments with reduced acoustic pollution promote deeper sleep cycles. You fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and experience more REM activity. That's right. The dream factory kicks into gear. And in a home carved from the bones of the desert, where the wind can't reach and the walls don't twitch, your dreams have room to stretch out, yawn, and get weird. Fringe fact time. Some older residents believe that dreams mean more when dreamt underground, that the earth listens to you, that sleeping beneath layers of clay draws out deeper truths, hidden fears, and ancestral whispers. One local told a researcher, quite seriously, "When you dream above ground, you're just playing, but down here, the dreams are real." Scientists still argue over whether the psychological effects of subterranean silence are beneficial or unsettling. Some believe it grounds you, literally. Low light, muted sound, steady temperatures. It's like a sensory cocoon. Others warn that prolonged exposure to such stillness can amplify feelings of isolation or introspection. There's a reason monastic caves and meditation cells look suspiciously similar to these homes. But for most residents of Matmata, it's not that deep. Literally, it's just a place to sleep that isn't melting from the heat. You want silence? Great. You want darkness? No problem. These rooms are dark enough that you could lose your shoe 10 inches from your face and not find it until breakfast. And then there's the temperature. Remember our earlier flirtation with thermal inertia? At night, when the desert cools, the cave maintains its gentle 20 degrees Celsius. It doesn't swing wildly between hot and cold like your upstairs bedroom in January. No drafts, no sudden temperature drops, just the same soothing climate all night long. The kind of consistent comfort that lulls your body into sleep mode before you even finish your bedtime tea. Still, there are surprises. Every home has its own microclimate. Some rooms stay slightly warmer, especially if they're deeper. Others are crisp and dry, perfect for storing food or escaping siblings. And because the walls breathe ever so slightly, you can sometimes catch faint scents on the air. Clay, bread, dust, wood smoke, and occasionally, inexplicably, oregano. Many homes burn small oil lamps at night. The flame casts long shadows, distorted by the curved walls, making the room feel deeper, softer, alive. Children whisper bedtime stories that sound like lullabies echoing up from the earth. Elders sit by the flickering light, quietly polishing copper or threading beads, and all around, the silence watches. Not ominously, just attentively, like the house itself is listening. So tonight, close your eyes and imagine what it would be like to sleep in a space like that. Not just dark, but black. Not just quiet, but still. The walls don't vibrate. The ceiling doesn't creak. There's no hum, no beep, no flash of blue from a phone screen. Just your breathing, your heartbeat, maybe the faintest rustle of linen as you shift. In that deep silence, something ancient stirs. Not spooky, not supernatural, just timeless. The same hush heard by a woman 500 years ago as she drifted off in this very room. The same calm felt by generations of dreamers who lay here before you. No alarms, no street noise, no distractions, just earth, sleep, and the sound of your mind quietly folding in on itself. Next up, not everyone finds this underground life romantic. In fact, some Tunisians have flat out rejected it. Let's meet them and find out what happens when tradition meets high-speed internet. Not everyone dreams of sleeping in a cave. Sure, it's cool, literally, quiet, and carries the vague allure of living like a mystical desert monk. But for some Tunisians, especially the younger generation, the idea of dwelling underground feels more like a slow, dusty curse than a cozy cultural tradition. Enter the surface dwellers. As Tunisia modernized through the late 20th century and into the digital age, a subtle shift began. People, especially those under 30, started looking up toward cities, toward concrete, toward anywhere that offered signal bars and indoor plumbing. The underground homes, once a badge of environmental genius and cultural identity, began to lose their grip on a new generation raised on TV, TikTok, and tutorials about LED lighting. So why are some Tunisians turning their backs on the cave life? Well, let's start with the obvious: infrastructure. Wi-Fi underground is tricky. You can try to run routers through the tunnels, sure, but thick clay walls tend to swallow signals like they swallow sound. Want to FaceTime grandma from your underground bedroom? Better climb up to the roof. Or better yet, move to New Matmata, where you can charge your phone without worrying about condensation in the plug sockets. There's also the plumbing issue. While some cave homes have been upgraded with pipes and pumps, many still rely on traditional wells and surface water tanks. Showers are bucket-based. Toilets might require a walk across the courtyard at 3 a.m., which, as you can imagine, is an extremely persuasive argument in favor of city apartments. Add to that the pressure to modernize. School curriculums, job markets, and even marriage prospects sometimes nudge families towards surface living. Parents want their kids to have access to better education, healthcare, and cell coverage. And sometimes that means saying goodbye to the very homes their grandparents dug by hand. Here's your geography anchor. Tunisia's urbanization rate has steadily increased over the past 40 years. More than 2/3 of the population now lives in urban or semi-urban environments and rural traditions, especially those requiring maintenance, like cave homes, have seen a slow but steady decline. And now, for a delightfully fringe fact. Some rebellious teenagers in Matmata have been known to sneak out of their cave homes not to party, but to charge their phones at a friend's house on the surface. There's even a running joke that if your kid is missing after dinner, check for footprints going up, not down. Scientists still argue about whether this shift is cultural evolution or cultural erosion. Is it progress when someone swaps a 400-year-old clay room for a studio apartment with a fridge that makes ice? Or is it a loss of architecture, of community, of something quietly beautiful and irreplaceable? Anthropologists squabble over terms like post-traditional identity and structural displacement. But in Matmata, it often boils down to a simpler, sharper debate: comfort versus continuity. Some families have found a middle ground. They preserve the old cave as a kind of weekend escape, a quiet place to return to when the city gets too loud. Others have transformed parts of their cave homes into guest rooms or Airbnb-style rentals, generating income while still honoring their heritage. A few turn them into museums, complete with labels and staged bread ovens, like living in your own exhibit. But for every one of those hybrid spaces, there's another that sits empty. A courtyard gone quiet, a room full of dust and old blankets, a carved doorway slowly softening back into the earth. And yet, not everyone is rushing for the exit. Some young Tunisians are choosing to stay, or, more interestingly, to return. These are the children of emigration, raised in cities like Tunis, Sfax, or even Marseille, who come back to visit grandparents and suddenly find themselves enchanted by the silence, by the cool air, by the smell of dry clay and mint tea. Some come back for a week and end up staying for a year. A few even start businesses, restoring and renting cave homes to tourists or digital nomads who think eco-lodging means fewer plug sockets and better Instagram angles. These returning locals often straddle both worlds. They bring solar panels, portable routers, compost toilets. They talk about sustainability, climate adaptation, cultural preservation. They give the same rooms a second life, with USB ports and sleeping bags rolled out beside heirloom rugs. Still, for many, cave life remains a romantic idea, best admired from a distance. Tourists love it. Anthropologists write glowing articles about it. Filmmakers come back again and again, fascinated by the geometry, the glow, the raw logic of digging where it's cool. But for the people who have to clean those tunnels, patch those walls, and keep the goats from eating the laundry, it's a complicated love story. So if you're lying there now, halfway between waking and sleep, picture yourself in that tension. One foot underground, the other reaching toward the surface. You hold a clay oil lamp in one hand and a smartphone in the other. You live in your great-grandfather's house, but you use Google Maps to find your cousin's courtyard. The past isn't gone, it's just buffering. Next up, let's talk about rain. Rare in the desert, but when it comes, oh boy, it comes. And underground homes have a very specific reaction to surprise weather. Grab your imaginary bucket. We're going in. Rain in the desert is like a surprise party. Rare, dramatic, and usually followed by chaos. Most days in Matmata pass under dry skies, where the sun reigns like an indifferent tyrant and clouds are more rumor than reality. But every once in a while, something shifts. A gust of cool wind, a low roll of thunder. And suddenly, the sky breaks open like a cracked jug. For the people who live underground, rain isn't just weather, it's a test. Because while these homes are marvels of thermal engineering and acoustic bliss, they weren't exactly designed with heavy rainfall in mind. Why would they be? The region averages under 200 millimeters, about 8 inches, of rainfall per year. That's less than what some cities get in a single weekend. For generations, rain was a blessing, a source of drinking water, a symbol of renewal. No one expected it to turn the house into a swimming pool. But then came 1969. It started with dark clouds, a novelty at first. A few kids danced in the dust. Elders stood in doorways, nodding solemnly at the sky. Then the rain came, and it didn't stop. For days, water pounded the region. Craters filled, tunnels flooded, entire homes caved in. Families scrambled to haul belongings above ground. Livestock drowned. Courtyards turned into muddy traps. The village was devastated. This was no gentle shower. It was a reminder from nature that no shelter, no matter how ancient or clever, is invincible. Here's your geography fact of the evening. Desert regions like southern Tunisia are prone to what's called episodic rainfall. Instead of consistent drizzle, they get sudden, intense storms, often the result of moisture-laden air from the Mediterranean clashing with dry Saharan heat. These downpours are rare, but when they come, they arrive like an apology shouted too loudly. After the flood of '69, the Tunisian government stepped in. Emergency aid arrived. A new village, New Matmata, was constructed above ground. Square houses, tiled roofs, drainage pipes. For a moment, it seemed like the end of troglodyte life. But then, something odd happened. People went back. Why? Because despite the damage, many still believed that the benefits of living underground outweighed the risks. The flooding, after all, was rare. The homes could be repaired, and surface life, for all its plumbing and predictability, lacked the soul of the old ways. Some families reinforced their courtyards with new drainage channels. Others installed handmade gutter systems to funnel rainwater away from doorways. A few simply developed a sixth sense about when to move their mattresses to higher ground. Fringe tidbit incoming. A few particularly superstitious villagers began placing small talismans made of metal and fabric near their tunnel entrances to confuse the rain spirits. Whether these worked or not remains debatable, but they're still seen in some courtyards today, usually hanging next to a solar panel, because balance is everything. Scientists still argue about how best to retrofit these homes for changing weather. Yet should modern materials be introduced? Should the courtyards be capped with transparent roofs? Some suggest sealing off older homes entirely and treating them as heritage sites. Others argue for empowering locals to lead their own renovations, using traditional techniques mixed with new technology. One international architecture program even proposed installing underground cisterns beneath each home to capture rainwater and prevent flooding, a plan that was technically brilliant, financially impossible, and according to one elder, just fancy holes inside of holes. For now, protection remains mostly DIY. A well-dug drainage trench, a slight slope in the courtyard floor, a plastic tarp tucked away just in case. Because while rain might be rare, memory is not, and the desert never forgets. There's something eerily beautiful about watching a storm from below. If you've ever stood in a Matmata courtyard during rainfall, lucky you, you'll know what I mean. The water doesn't fall gently. It dives. It slams into the earth, bounces off stone, drips through cracks in the walls. Thunder sounds different underground, less sharp, more like the sky is growling through a mouthful of clay. Lightning flashes above, casting shadows into the rooms like flickering ghosts. And when the storm passes, everything slows. The smell of wet earth is thick, sweet, and grounding. Courtyard floors turn muddy and slick. Tools are fetched. Water is swept into corner basins or down-carved runnels. It's not panic. It's practice. Everyone knows their role. Everyone has seen this before. But still, there's a reverence, a kind of grudging respect for what the rain can do. As one local said, the sun may burn us, but the rain reminds us that the earth is alive. At night, after a storm, cave homes feel different, cooler, damp, but not unpleasant. Like the earth has just taken a long drink and now rests, full and humming. Families gather closer. Tea tastes stronger. Stories are told with a little more flourish. And somewhere in the dark, the desert settles back into itself, waiting for the next surprise. So tonight, imagine yourself waking up to the sound of rainfall. Not the tap of drops on a roof, but the deep, echoing splash of water hitting stone. You step into the courtyard, carefully, barefoot, and watch the puddles shimmer under a rare desert moon. Above, the stars have returned. Below, the earth exhales. And for now, everything holds. Coming up, let's step into the heart of the home, the kitchen, where flames dance low, bread rises slowly, and underground ovens work a kind of magic no appliance can match. Let's step into the kitchen, but not the kind you know. There's no fridge humming in the corner, no microwave with blinking numbers, no marble countertops or softly glowing pendant lights. Here, beneath the clay, the kitchen is something older, warmer, earthier. It's a place where cooking isn't just a chore. It's ceremony, craft, and quiet rebellion against modern noise. The kitchen in a traditional Matmata cave home is often tucked into one of the side tunnels off the main courtyard. It might look plain at first glance: rough-hewn walls, a low ceiling, a few wide clay shelves. But then you notice the dark scorch marks along the wall, the soot that tells you, yes, this is where fire lives. The central figure of this space is the tabuna, a rounded clay oven shaped like a squat cone. Built directly into the ground, it opens at the top and breathes heat like a gentle dragon. Fueled by bundles of dry brush or olive wood, it holds warmth in its thick clay belly, slowly releasing it upward to cook flatbread, stews, and anything else that requires time and care. No knobs, no timers. You learn when it's ready by instinct, smell, and the quiet hum of glowing embers. Mainstream geography moment. This type of oven has cousins all over North Africa and the Middle East. You'll find similar clay stoves in Morocco, Libya, and even parts of rural Turkey. What sets Tunisia's apart is how seamlessly they're folded into the home's layout. Sunken, unobtrusive, often camouflaged into the same wall that holds the spice rack and the tea jars. Meals are built slowly here. A dough is kneaded on a low stone table. Chickpeas are soaked overnight. A sauce bubbles in a wide terracotta pot, stirred occasionally with a wooden ladle worn smooth by generations of hands. It's not about precision. It's about rhythm. A recipe passed down by sight, not measuring spoons. Here's a quirky detail. Some women will sing softly while the bread rises, not for entertainment, but because, as one local grandmother put it, bread rises better when it hears love. Scientifically provable? Doubtful. Emotionally undeniable? Absolutely. The kitchen is also a place of sensory explosion. You walk in, and it hits you. The smoky warmth of firewood, the sharp scent of cumin, the gentle bitterness of dried mint, the buttery weight of semolina dough left to rest under a cloth. There's no extractor fan. The smells don't go away. They live here. They climb the walls. They embed themselves into the clay. You could enter a cave kitchen with your eyes closed and still know exactly what's cooking. Fringe fact alert. A few families believe that their oldest clay ovens hold memories of the meals cooked inside. One woman insisted her lentils taste better when she uses her grandmother's oven than in the newer one her husband built. It remembers, she said with a shrug, as if that explained everything. And in a way, it did. Scientists still argue over whether traditional clay ovens outperform modern appliances in energy efficiency. Some point to their low fuel usage and high thermal retention as proof of brilliance. Others note that the temperature control is more guesswork than guarantee. But those who use them don't need studies. They'll tell you it works. It feels right. And the bread? Oh, the bread is divine. Meals in a cave home aren't quiet affairs. The sound of cooking bounces softly down the hallways. The clatter of pots. The occasional hiss of dough hitting hot clay. Someone peels garlic while sitting on a stool carved into the wall. Children run through to sneak olives or dates. A rooster, somehow, always present, lurks just outside the courtyard, waiting for crumbs. And when the food is ready, it's served family style. There's no formal dining room, just a mat spread on the floor, a shared bowl, a lot of hands, and even more laughter. No one eats alone. If you're a guest, you're fed until you politely beg them to stop. If you live there, you know exactly how to angle your bread to scoop the best bits from the center. After the meal, tea is prepared, not hurried, never instant. Fresh mint, black leaves, lots of sugar. The pot simmers quietly as conversation drifts. The kitchen, once busy with motion, begins to slow. Embers dim. Someone sweeps the floor with a stiff brush of palm fibers. A jar is sealed, a leftover folded into cloth, nothing wasted. And somehow, even when the kitchen falls silent, it stays warm. Not from the fire, but from the echoes of what just happened. Laughter, seasoning, stories about the neighbor who burned her bread again because she was flirting with the date seller. So tonight, imagine sitting in that kitchen. The fire's gone quiet. The walls still glow faintly. Your belly is full. Your eyelids heavy. Someone places a cup of tea into your hand without saying a word. You take a sip. Sweet, strong, herbal. The warmth spreads from your chest to your fingertips. Outside, the wind brushes past the courtyard, gentle and dry. But here, underground, the air holds steady, soft, scented with spices and fire. You're not just fed, you're kept. In our next section, we step away from the flames and into fabric. Let's explore how living in the earth shapes what people wear on the surface, why goatskin sandals matter, and how clay calls the shots on fashion. Living underground does something curious to your sense of style. If you're picturing dusty robes and cave cloaks straight out of a fantasy novel, slow down. The reality is much more textured. Practical, yes, but with flashes of flair that could turn heads in any fashion week with the right lighting. Because when your home is carved from clay and your mornings start in a crater, your clothes have to do more than just look good. They have to work. Let's start from the ground up. Footwear. In the cave villages of southern Tunisia, the shoe of choice has long been the goatskin sandal. Hand-stitched, flat-soled, and tough enough to take a beating from rock, sand, and unpredictable tunnel staircases. These sandals are the underground equivalent of armor. They're lightweight, breathable, and quietly brilliant in design. Unlike sneakers, they don't trap heat or dust. Unlike boots, they don't clomp. And unlike flip-flops, they don't betray you on slippery surfaces. In fact, you might say these sandals are the unsung heroes of subterranean mobility. You could climb a tunnel, chase a goat, and still look respectable enough to pour tea for guests, all without changing shoes. Take that, Crocs. Now move up to the legs, and you'll find the traditional surwal, loose tapered trousers made from cotton or linen, sometimes gathered at the ankle. Easy to squat in, cool in summer, great for hauling buckets of clay or sitting cross-legged on a woven mat during lunch. If cargo pants are the Swiss Army knife of modern clothing, the surwal is the desert's cooler, older cousin who never lost a button. On top, for women, tunics and long blouses dominate, flowy, layered pieces that move gently when you walk and provide shade even in open courtyards. Many women wear long scarves or shawls, futas, wrapped around the waist or shoulders, dyed in earthy reds, oranges, and deep indigo. These aren't just fashion statements. They double as aprons, baby carriers, and in a pinch, makeshift sun shields. Men often wear the jebba, a sleeveless tunic worn over a shirt, sometimes with embroidery at the collar. Older men might top it off with a soft, rolled Czechia hat, dyed burgundy, and worn like a sleepy fez. It's the kind of look that says, I built a house with my hands and still have time for mint tea at 4. Mainstream fashion insight. Traditional North African clothing isn't just cultural, it's climatic. Loose-fitting, breathable, and layer-friendly. These garments are designed for thermal comfort in extreme conditions. The Berber and Arab communities across Tunisia developed clothing patterns that work in both blazing sun and cool desert nights. Exactly what you'd want when your day shifts between an underground tunnel and an open courtyard. And here's a fringe tidbit. In some families, garments are stored in clay niches carved directly into the bedroom walls. Imagine a wardrobe made of dirt, one that keeps your favorite tunic dry, your jewelry cool, and your sandals safe from overly curious goats. Some niches are even scented with herbs or dried flowers tucked inside cloth sachets, natural air fresheners, courtesy of Aunt Fatima's lavender stash. Now, let's talk jewelry. Living underground doesn't mean living plain. Berber silverwork is famous for its bold, chunky designs. Bracelets with engraved talismans, long coin-laden necklaces, and earrings that could double as door knockers. Many of these pieces serve dual purposes. They're decorative and symbolic. A particular pendant might protect against envy. A specific ring might signal marital status. A heavy necklace, often a family heirloom, worn during celebrations and weddings, held in the very courtyard where the bride once toddled around barefoot. Scientists still argue whether these fashion choices stem more from climate or culture. Are people wearing linen because it breathes well underground? Or because their great-grandmother dyed it that way, using crushed indigo leaves? Is the goatskin sandal superior, or just a holdover from centuries of trial and error? The answer, as always, lies somewhere between function and identity. It's fashion that works because it has to, and looks good while doing it. In modern times, cave fashion is evolving. Some younger residents mix traditional clothing with Western styles. You might see someone in jeans and a t-shirt with a hand-woven scarf draped dramatically over one shoulder. Or a teenager in high-top sneakers hauling a basket of vegetables through a 1,000-year-old tunnel. The mashup is real, and honestly, it works. Occasionally, there are even fashion shows held in the courtyards, impromptu ones during weddings or holiday gatherings, where the latest blouse is shown off with a proud twirl and a sly comment. She had it made in Tatooine, someone will whisper. Imported lace, another will add, scandalized and impressed in equal measure. But when it comes down to it, clothing in cave homes is more than fabric. It's utility, it's adaptation, it's memory. The headscarf your mother gave you, the sandals you reshaped after a month of wear, the bracelet you only bring out on Eid. Each piece holds stories, smells, stains, and pride. So tonight, as you curl beneath your own blanket, picture slipping on a pair of sandals warmed by the courtyard sun, running your fingers across embroidered thread that tells the story of your village in loops and knots, feeling the weight of silver against your collarbone as you descend into the cool silence of your home. You are wrapped not just in cloth, but in culture, stitched, dyed, and dusted into being by the same hands that built the room around you. Next up, let's turn the corner into the modern era. Social media, curious travelers, and tourism have found their way into the tunnels, sometimes with selfie sticks. Let's see how global attention is reshaping cave life and what happens when your kitchen becomes content. Let's face it, if your house looks like a Star Wars set, someone's going to film it. And these days, they're probably going to film themselves in it with filters, hashtags, and a caption like, "Found this cave on Mars #desert vibes." That's right, Matmata and its neighboring troglodyte villages have become unwitting stars of Instagram, TikTok, and travel vlogs, with synthy music and wide-angle drone shots. Welcome to the age of curated curiosity. Once upon a time, the underground homes of Tunisia were barely visible from the surface. Today, they're tagged on Google Maps, reviewed on TripAdvisor, and streamed in 4K by lifestyle influencers with ring lights and portable Wi-Fi routers. Some visitors are respectful, genuinely fascinated, eager to learn. Others are, shall we say, performative. Think, climbing into a family's courtyard uninvited because it looked aesthetic. But before we roll our eyes too hard, let's take a step back. Tourism, for all its cringy moments, has brought money, attention, and even a bit of pride to these remote communities. Local guides now offer cave tours. Some families have converted extra rooms into guest suites. There are hand-embroidered tunics for sale, pottery workshops in courtyards, and even full-on sleep-like-a-Berber packages complete with camel rides and breakfast in a crater. Here's your mainstream fact. Tourism is now one of the top income sources for Matmata, alongside agriculture and remittances from Tunisians working abroad. The region sees thousands of visitors annually, especially since Star Wars fans began treating it like a sacred pilgrimage site. Hotel Sidi Driss, remember? Still going strong, with rooms named after planets and walls lined with faded prop panels. But here's the fringe twist. Some locals have become influencers themselves. Young Tunisians film tutorials on how to build a tabuna. Grandmothers post bread baking videos that rack up millions of views. One guy from Tatooine runs an entire YouTube channel from inside his family's cave home, explaining Berber traditions while his goat casually chews scenery in the background. It's not just outside eyes anymore. It's a two-way lens. Still, scientists and sociologists argue over what this means for the culture. Is tourism preserving tradition or flattening it into a backdrop for selfies? Does showing the world your home create connection or just exposure fatigue? Some older residents worry. They remember when no one knew about the caves, when privacy was sacred and the only guests were family and the occasional neighbor who showed up unannounced but with bread, so it was fine. Now, strangers arrive with cameras and drone permits, asking if they can see the real rooms. The real rooms? This is the real room, ma'am. The toddler playing with a tin cup is not part of the set. There's also the issue of presentation. In order to appeal to tourists, some cave homes have been staged, decorated with exaggerated tribal patterns, strategically placed rugs, and authentic setups that feel more museum than home. It's not fakery exactly, but it's a kind of performance, one that can sometimes trap tradition in amber, keeping it preserved but no longer alive. And yet, not all change is bad. Tourism has funded school renovations. It's helped some families modernize their water systems and install solar panels. A few young entrepreneurs have returned to Matmata, drawn by the opportunity to build eco-lodges or host cultural retreats. They've brought laptops into the tunnels, turned storage rooms into editing suites, started businesses that let the caves tell their own stories, not as curiosities, but as living spaces full of light, love, and occasional goat drama. Fringe tidbit for your files. A local craftsman once sold a traditional hand-carved door to a European art dealer for more money than his family made in a year. He immediately spent it on building a new courtyard, then carved a better door. There are still challenges. Internet infrastructure is shaky. Some tourists overstep boundaries. Others try to bargain aggressively over a hand-woven rug that took 3 weeks to make. But overall, the community is learning to navigate this new world, one where a wedding procession might pause to let a travel blogger finish their intro take, then proceed with drums and ululation as if nothing happened. So tonight, as you drift deeper under your blanket, picture yourself scrolling through your feed. You pause on a video. A circular courtyard lit by lanterns, a woman in a headscarf spinning dough, children dancing barefoot in the corner. And then you realize it's not a set, it's not a scene, it's someone's home, carved from earth, still warm from the afternoon sun, still echoing with laughter. You see the cracks in the walls, the handprints near the oven, the wear on the doorstep, and something about it sticks with you, quiet and grounding. You double tap. Sure, but you also remember. Next up, some cave dwellers don't just survive modern life, they embrace it. With solar panels, portable speakers, and phones tucked into clay niches, let's meet the new generation of off-grid cave kids who charge their devices and traditions in the same socket. You'd think that living underground would mean living off the grid. But in Matmata and nearby troglodyte villages, the truth is far more interesting and a little bit hilarious. Because while these homes may have been carved before the printing press was a thing, many are now equipped with solar panels, Bluetooth speakers, and enough USB ports to charge a small rebellion. Welcome to the era of the plugged-in cave dweller. Let's be clear, most of these homes still retain their traditional structure: clay walls, courtyard cores, domed ceilings. But walk into the right room and blink, you'll find a laptop humming on a woven mat, a phone lighting up a shadowy tunnel, maybe even a TV mounted onto a clay surface with what looks suspiciously like chewing gum and hope. This isn't accidental, it's intentional evolution. Families are adapting the old world to the new without losing the essence of either. You might see a grandmother kneading dough in the kitchen while her grandson edits drone footage of the same courtyard for a class project. One hand in flour, the other on TikTok. Here's your mainstream geography fact. Tunisia has seen rapid digital expansion over the past 2 decades. Internet penetration now exceeds 80%, even in rural areas. And while underground homes pose unique challenges, like thick clay walls eating Wi-Fi signals for breakfast, solutions are popping up everywhere. Signal repeaters, outdoor routers, solar-powered battery banks. If there's one thing cave dwellers are not, it's disconnected. Take solar panels, for example. They're surprisingly common now, especially in courtyards where the sun hits hard. No electric poles needed, just sunshine, a battery box, and the quiet satisfaction of using ancient architecture to power a modern life. Some families run lights, fans, and small fridges off solar alone. One proud homeowner even showed off his panel with the same energy you'd expect from someone unveiling a sports car. No bill, he grinned, just the sun. But it's not just about gadgets. The real shift is in lifestyle. Teenagers in these homes often live a hybrid reality. They wake up in cool, dim rooms shaped by their great-grandparents. They spend mornings helping in the kitchen, maybe feeding animals or sweeping tunnels. And by afternoon, they're live streaming from the courtyard or joining English classes over Zoom. It's a beautiful, surreal mashup. Old walls, new windows. You'll find modern kitchens tucked beside ancient ovens, a rice cooker steaming quietly next to a tabuna glowing red. Some cave homes even have bathrooms with actual plumbing now, No more nighttime treks across the courtyard for some lucky families. A few have air purifiers, mood lighting, or little motion sensor nightlights that make every tunnel look like a spaceship corridor. Fringe tidbit time. One cave-dwelling couple in their 30s installed a projector in their main room and now host weekly clay cinema nights for their neighbors. They project movies onto a whitewashed wall, bring out snacks, and use cushions instead of chairs. The acoustics, they say, are better than Netflix. Scientists still argue about how much modern tech a heritage home can absorb before it stops being a heritage home. Preservationists worry that too many changes, too many wires, devices, dishwashers, could dilute the cultural identity of these spaces. Others argue that adaptation is preservation, that the only way traditions survive is by moving forward. Locals, however, don't seem to be waiting for scholarly consensus. Instead, they're figuring things out day by day, installing small things that make big differences. Solar lanterns that help elderly residents walk at night, rechargeable blenders for fresh juice in the courtyard, a teen with a ring light making beauty tutorials in Berber, a grandmother whose WhatsApp group is more active than yours, guaranteed. The best part? These additions don't feel like intrusions. They're seamlessly folded into the rhythms of underground life. The rooms are still quiet. The walls still hum with centuries. The technology simply enhances the flow. It doesn't overwrite it. Take the case of the family who installed a motion-sensitive speaker that plays Quranic recitations when someone enters the tunnel at night. Or the man who carved a charging station directly into the wall so his guests can juice up their phones beside their tea glass. Practical, modern, respectful. That's the unspoken rule. If the tech helps and doesn't annoy Grandma Fatma, it stays. Even agriculture's getting an upgrade. Some cave households now use weather apps to time their planting, or drip irrigation systems powered by solar timers. One uncle, proudly showing off his clay-walled herb garden, explained how he learned composting from a YouTube video. The guy was Canadian, he said. His snow looked very confusing, but his compost? Excellent. Of course, not everything fits. Washing machines are rare, microwaves even more so. The layout of most homes just isn't suited to certain modern appliances. Plus, the rhythm of life here doesn't rush. Why microwave a soup in 2 minutes when it tastes better? Simmered all afternoon. So tonight, picture yourself reclining in a cave room lit by a soft, solar-powered lamp. A phone charges quietly in the corner. Somewhere, someone is playing a song through a speaker hidden behind a jug of dates. You sip tea while uploading a video. You check messages, then tuck the phone away. The room hums, not with noise, but with balance. Because the future didn't replace the past here. It walked in barefoot, nodded politely, and made itself useful. Next up, let's meet the ones still holding it all together. Not the tourists, not the influencers, but the elders who quietly maintain the traditions, sweep the courtyards, and remind everyone what these homes really mean. They rise before the sun. Not with alarm clocks, but with instinct. A shift in light. The sound of wind nudging through the courtyard. The scent of the earth just before it warms. These are the elders of Matmata, the last generation born into cave homes who still remember how to dig a new room with just a pickaxe, a rope, and a good back. And in many ways, they're the quiet keepers of everything. You might see them sweeping the courtyard, not in a rush, but as a kind of meditation. Bent slightly, hands practiced, not just cleaning, maintaining a space that has held generations. They water plants growing in chipped jugs, adjust a loose stone, check for cracks in the tunnel arch. Their movements aren't grand, they're ritual, and without them, the caves would start to forget themselves. Most of these elders were born underground. Their first memories are of dark, cool rooms lit by oil lamps and the smell of bread. They grew up chasing siblings through courtyards, dodging goats, learning which walls stayed warm at night and which tunnels flooded when the rain came early. They didn't just live in these homes, they became part of them. Here's your geography fact of the night. Troglodyte homes in southern Tunisia are typically passed down through family lines. Inheritance is more than legal, it's cultural. Each courtyard tells a story, marked by new rooms dug for weddings, or walls patched after a storm. There's no title deed as romantic as, "My grandfather carved this with his own hands." But as life has changed, many of these elders have watched the younger generations drift away toward the cities, the coast, the world of apartments and elevators. Some understand it, some resent it. Most carry it quietly, knowing that even if the kids don't live here anymore, the cave still lives in them. Some have adapted. They learn to use smartphones, often with great flair and very large text. They send voice notes and 3-minute monologues. They teach old recipes on Facebook Live, with grandchildren holding the camera and laughing. A few have even embraced tourist visits, offering tea, stories, and the kind of calm gaze that silences even the most hyperactive vlogger. And then there are those who prefer to keep things as they were. No cameras, no tours. Just the same clay walls, the same chipped teapot, the same rhythm of days. These elders are caretakers of the original underground lifestyle. They still whitewash walls with lime and ash, still plant herbs in pottery half buried in soil, still press their palms against the cool surface of a freshly carved room and nod in approval. That's the test. If the clay feels right under your hand, you're doing it well. Here's a fringe detail you won't find in many guidebooks. Some of these elders can still read a cave wall. They know which patterns of cracking mean the roof needs reinforcing, which changes in color suggest water seepage, which patches of dust in the courtyard mean a tunnel's been disturbed below. It's like a language. Clay whispering, and the elder answering with a broom, a brush, a gentle sigh. Scientists still argue about how to preserve this knowledge. Much of it is oral, passed down in conversation, not manuals. Efforts have been made to record techniques, map layouts, even 3D scan homes before they collapse. But nothing replaces the touch of someone who knows. You can't digitize muscle memory, and yet these elders aren't relics. They're living bridges. Some teach school children how to sweep properly, not too fast, or you just chase the dust. Others sit with architects who want to build eco-resorts and explain patiently why you never dig on a Tuesday. It's bad luck. No one knows why, but no one risks it. They are the ones who remember when the cave was everything. Not an attraction, not a curiosity, just life. Life filled with footsteps and voices, and the daily rhythm of wind above, water below, and the flicker of fire between. Their rooms are quieter now. Some of their courtyards echo too much, but they keep going, because to them, the cave is not a thing to abandon. It's a living presence. Something you care for, something that will outlive you if you treat it well. Tonight, picture yourself sitting beside one of these elders. You're sipping sweet tea from a chipped glass. The room is dim, the light soft and low. They're telling you a story about the time a goat got stuck in a tunnel and had to be bribed out with figs. You're laughing, but they're serious. It was a smart goat, they insist. And then the elder leans back, looks around the room, and says, "All this, it's not about the home. It's about how you live in it." And maybe that's the lesson. Because in the end, the cave is not just architecture. It's philosophy. It's memory. It's earth and heat and shadow and family. And as the desert shifts and the world moves on, it's the elders, those with dust on their feet and stories in their pockets, who keep that heartbeat steady. Now, let's wind it down together. The courtyard is still now. The last of the tea has gone cold. A faint breeze brushes through the tunnel entrance, stirring the air just enough to remind you the desert is still out there, somewhere beyond the walls. But here inside, it's quiet. Deep quiet. The kind that wraps itself around you, soft and sure. The clay under your fingers is cool, smooth, steady. The lantern flickers once, then steadies. You can hear the slow settling of the house, the soft crack of a drying wall, the distant clink of a cup, the whisper of a blanket being drawn tighter across someone's chest. Outside, stars bloom like scattered salt across the sky. The earth breathes slow and low. There's no rush, no schedule, no pressure to be anything but here. The house holds you, as it has held generations. The walls know your shape. The floor welcomes your weight. And the air, it's just right. Let your body sink into the stillness. Let your thoughts unspool like thread. If a dream comes, let it find you gently, floating through tunnels, brushing past herbs hung to dry, hearing the laughter of someone long gone and still close. This isn't the end of the story. The caves will keep breathing. The earth will keep holding. And tomorrow, someone will sweep the dust, knead the dough, pour the tea. Life goes on here, not loudly but beautifully. So rest now. The desert is sleeping, and the cave is watching over you like it always has.